unless you have a very long shooting lane in a swamp, more than likely the bears know you are present while you're hunting them. Their nose is so good. They're very, at least older bears are careful about how they approach baits, and they get used to you being there, and they start recognizing you as the source of that food. And that's where it gets a little bit tricky having other people bait for you. Their nose is, I think, 600 times more powerful than a dog's, so they can recognize the difference in human scent between you and I, for example. If I have a guy in the UP going and baiting for me, he's going to get used to that guy's scent as this is food. And then 5 days before season, I show up and they're like, okay, something's different here. Something is wrong.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Fair Chase podcast. I've got Joe Griffin today with me. How are you, Joe?
Howdy. I'm good. How are you?
Good. Well, Joe and I were just actually on the phone talking through our bear plans for this fall. And I was like, well, it's pretty good information. So I figured, why don't we hop on and talk for a little bit? So a little background, a lot of times this time of year, you get stuck thinking about and talking about your hunts out west, mule deer, elk, and grizzly bear for Joe here and whatever else. But a lot of years, and this year included, we'll be out in the fall in Michigan hunting black bears. So I haven't seen a lot of information out there on really, bear baiting strategies up, especially in the UP, which is where we both drew. So I figured, we should talk about it for a little bit. So just to preface that with the fact that I've hunted over a bait once in the UP, but I didn't do the baiting myself. It didn't go well. And so really, I also wanted to use this time for me to ask Joe, who's done it for a long time, to kind of share, which should be no surprise to anybody, that Joe has experience with some sort of type of hunting. But I wanted to just pick your brain, Joe, and talk through what our plan is going to be, because we are basically hunting two different seasons in the same area in the UP.
Right. Yeah. So we've been hunting this area of the UP. I started hunting up there when I was 13 or 14 years old. And I think the last time that I personally had a bear tag up there was in like 2012 or something like that. So it's been a hot minute. There's other areas in the UP. We're in Kearney, which is like Escanaba. Where does that go? Delta, Menominee County, down into the peninsula there, into the tip. So the southwest side of the UP. To get a first season tag up there historically takes between 5 and 7 points. It's trending at about 7 right now, even though they are giving more tags than they were in the past. So I had a tag a long time ago when I was basically an older teenager, and learned a lot from that. And then other guys in our camp that have had tags in the past too. So Jeff has had a tag up there. My friend Pat has had a tag up there a couple of years ago. My friend John has had a tag. Chase is lucky. If you're a youth, you can put in for it. And if you don't draw, then you can put in for a turn back tag or a leftover list, and then they can essentially draw a tag without any points at all. So Chase has had a tag a few times now. He killed a great bear last year further north. But just kind of going over some of the things that we've learned from the decade or so that we've been baiting up there. And some of the tactics have changed a little bit over the years, but most of it's pretty sound, stays the same year after year. So
who taught you how to bait?
I kind of picked up a lot of it, just trial and error. And then recently chased through a tag 2 years ago up in Baraga unit. And a friend of mine's cousin lives up there who is obsessed with bear hunting and bear baiting, and got some kind of new advice and tips from him.
OnX is the title sponsor of our podcast here at the Fair Chase, and it's a must-have app for all of us who love to explore the outdoors. Whether you're hunting or hiking or fly fishing, OnX gives you detailed, accurate maps right at your fingertips. With property boundaries, topographical features, and trail data, you'll always know where you are and where you're headed. You'll also likely be able to figure out where that big buck is headed to. Plus, Their offline maps mean you're covered even in the most remote locations. OnX is the ultimate tool for outdoor navigation, making every adventure safer and more enjoyable. Download OnX today and explore with confidence.
He's probably the most like well-rounded bear baiter that I know. He runs. They're in a unit where you can draw tags a little bit more frequently, and his whole family hunts him. So they'll take first, second, third season, whatever they can get, just to be hunting a lot. And they'll run up to a dozen baits or 16 baits, whatever it is, whatever they've got tags for, annually. So got some really good insight from him, and just honestly trial and error, YouTube videos, forums, kind of always trying to learn different stuff about what to do differently and what will make a bait more successful. So the biggest thing that I've learned over the years, we're coming up on August 10th is when we can start baiting. It's a calendar month prior to when your season starts. So you're getting a little bit of a head start on baiting for your tag because you're basically piggybacking off of my bait. I have first season, you have second. So we're starting it exactly a calendar month prior to when my tag starts. And then 5 days later, yours starts after that. So you'll be out mule deer hunting, I think, until, well, no, you're, I guess, a week after.
Yeah, I'll be mule deer hunting until the like the 6th, 7th.
Okay, so you'll be back even prior to my tag starting.
Yeah.
But the goal with this essentially is to get a bait established, get bears in the area, get them consistent on this bait. Hopefully I kill one in a day or two, because I got to bomb out to Colorado there immediately after that. I got like 2, maybe 3 days to do this. And then I'm going west, and that's where you're going to move into the bait that hopefully is still hot between the 3 or 6 stations that we decide to set, and kill your bear. So how we're going to start that is, the first thing we're going to do is look for natural mass crop. So wild blackberries, wild raspberries. There's not a lot of acorns in the areas that we're going to set. There's one ridge that might have some, but I'm not very dependent on that. And then we're going to be looking at corn. Fortunately or unfortunately, the area that we hunt has a lot of corn. And there is a time frame where the corn holds a lot of bears, but at the same time, they'll leave your bait for the corn when it hits a certain hardness, and they can digest it a little bit more easily. So we've seen it in the past where the week and a half or the week prior to season, you've got 6 or 7 different bears hitting your bait, and 4 of them are daylighting, and you're getting excited. And then 3 days prior to season, everything's gone. Nothing's changed.
Yep.
It's just,
I hit it all the time.
yeah, they hit it at midnight every other day. And the week prior to that, it seemed like they were living on the bait. Like, I've got videos of them literally sleeping and rolling in the bait. And then a week later, they're just completely absent. So that's one thing that we've changed, is being very close to whatever their natural food source is, or whatever that mass crop is, keeps them more consistent on your bait. I used to look for just like a big long opening in a cedar swamp where, okay, deepest, darkest, nastiest stuff you can find, that's where the bears live, and then putting a bait somewhere in there. Now we've kind of transitioned to looking for that natural food source, that natural mass crop, and being as close to that as we possibly can, while still having a good point of entry, while still being able to get volume of bait in there without causing a whole lot of noise. Not that noise is necessarily a bad thing when you get closer to kill time, but just ease of entry and ease of bait while being close to that mass crop. And that might be setting up in a cornfield. That might be setting up just adjacent to a cornfield, or setting up on a ridge that has a lot of raspberries or blackberries or whatever the natural food source might be. So,
and just to rewind, I mean, for people who don't know, in Michigan, I mean, you either are baiting bears or you're running dogs after bears. You don't spot and stalk necessarily in the UP. Doesn't really work with the terrain you're in. So lots of guys will run dogs, but obviously this year we're baiting.
This episode is brought to you by 2O Gear, innovators in technical hunting clothing. 2O is a newer company. It's based right here in Michigan. And whether you're hunting elk in the mountains or chasing antelope in the plains or traipsing through swamps after that ruddy buck, 2O has you covered with premium jackets and pants, merino wool layers, everything you could possibly need to stay comfortable in the woods. Their products are engineered for functionality and durability, ensuring you stay protected in any conditions. Plus, their camo is really effective. We're big fans. So don't take our word for it, though. Go to 2ogear.com and check it out.
Historically, yeah, that's accurate. There's the occasional guys that will take a second or a third season tag and they just happen to see one while they're bow hunting for deer. And it's just a chance situation at that. But yeah, by and large, baiting is number one, followed closely thereafter by dogs.
Yeah. So you found the spot. Actually, yeah, you found the spot. You're like looking to set up. How are you picking what types of bait? Because there's a lot of different opinions on what that is, and so what are you looking at?
That's kind of tricky because bears are very similar to humans where they have different preferences and different tastes for certain things. And I've put some bait out there where I'm like, holy cow, this is going to be like, they're going to go crazy over this stuff. Cherry pie filling was one that I was like, we are going to slaughter them on this. And they just didn't care for it. Had no idea why. Super high in fat, super high in sugar. The caloric value is there. Obviously it's sweet. They love sweets. Weren't digging the pie filling. I like to have something that's a base, like a kind of like a binder or a filler, I guess, whether that's granola or like peanut butter wafer, or a lot of people use popcorn. I haven't done a ton of that. Peanuts is another one that people like to use a lot. And then dog food is a kind of age-old staple. I haven't done a ton with the dog food and grease thing.
Yeah.
I try to kind of keep in mind that I'm going to be eating this thing afterwards. So, but anything that's going to be like the super, super nasty stuff that, you necessarily wouldn't want to eat yourself, I try to do like right before I kill it. So if you're going to do
Something gross,
pile of marshmallows or something like that, maybe that's like the treat that they get right before it goes to kill time.
Yeah.
The big thing is you just want the bear to feel like it's rewarded for attending the bait station every time it shows up. So if you have something there for him every time, even if it's not necessarily what he wants, there's some sort of food there for him every time. If they ever show up to an empty bait station, that's bad news for consistency. They'll abandon it pretty quickly. So then there's a number. Go ahead.
Yeah. They're coming to this bait and they're eating this type of food, which sounds probably weird to maybe people who haven't baited before, but they want this high carb, high sugar, high fat because they're just getting ready for the winter.
Right. But they also at the same time like piles of donuts and bakery items, and I know Pop-Tarts is a big one. You can get 55-gallon or 2,000-pound totes of rejected Pop-Tarts from Kellogg's and all these different places, and they'll hit that and they love that. But if there is a natural crop for them, they will always take that over top of whatever bait you're putting out almost exclusively. Which seems backwards, right? Like they're like a giant trash panda essentially, but they, given the option, they'll take the natural stuff over top of the whatever it is that you're putting in the barrel. So anytime you can be close again to that natural food or mass crop is going to make your bait 10 times more effective.
Well, you want to put on weight, but you don't want to, you got to stay lean for the spring when they come out, and look good. Right. It is interesting, that they do that. It's like, they were made to eat a certain thing. We're trying to feed them something that it might not necessarily made to eat. So are you finding, like, when you're looking out looking for bait, that you'll see them, especially if you ever drive through kind of the northern parts of Michigan, you'll see a little, cardboard signs or whatever for bear bait. Like, what are you looking for? What do you, if you see it, like you're like, that's legit or not, or you're not too critical about it?
Realistically, like most things in the world, all the signs that you see on the road, all of the bait stores or stations set up along Highway 55 or Highway 2 or 75 or all these places that are common for bear hunting, they're all getting it from like one or two distributors, I guess, if you will. One's in Iron River and one's in Wisconsin. It's just whatever that bait store or feed mill decided to buy that year, whatever they got a good deal on truckloads and truckloads of from these distributors. So the one that we typically go through, and I think he does a pretty good job and he's really fairly priced, is Ray's Feed Mill he's just west of Escanaba, closer to Bark River.
Yeah.
But there's a million of them. Like, yeah, you see the signs for it. And what I'm looking for, I guess, is we're going up there this coming weekend, and we're going to be looking for a base, which is going to be granola or peanuts or something that's just kind of like a dried good that we can fill barrels with and keep it dry, and something that's got crumbles to it where they can't take big chunks of it and empty our barrel in a night or two. So something that they have to work for a little bit. And then we'll add some corn to the mix, or a sweet cake icing in buckets is good. We'll smear the cake icing all over the barrel, as funny as that sounds, but they'll lick the barrel, and it just gives them some options, essentially. If it was cost effective, I would buy totes of blueberries and blackberries, but that's just like not feasible. So
That's their fave.
right. So you kind of just find other things and some bears like different stuff, and you just have to kind of trial and error, figure out what that is.
Hunters, listen up. Latitude Outdoors builds gear for the mobile hunter. Their saddle hunting systems are designed to cut weight, not performance, so you can cover more ground and set up fast, wherever the hunt takes you. From dense hardwoods to open ridges, their mobile-focused gear keeps you efficient and adaptable. Check out their full range at latitudeoutdoors.com.
But the big thing is that there's just always something there for them, no matter what. You never, ever, ever want them to come to an empty bait.
Yeah. Well, and big part of that is then you got to monitor it to make sure, when bears are hitting it. If you, like we were talking about earlier, if you see 7 bears on a bait, pretty soon that thing's going to be empty. Better start heading back up north. So like in a year, is this a weekly thing you're typically doing? Like, how often are you like refreshing, rebaiting it?
It depends on what you're doing. So if you're on private land, you have the luxury of there's no limits to how much bait you can put down.
Yeah.
On public, like you can use barrels and things like that. You can make a shaker barrel that they have to work a lot to get bait out of it. If you're hunting on public land, you're limited because you have to use something like a stump, a hollowed out stump or log, where it's a natural thing that you either find or kind of make out on public. And then you're limited to how much bait you can put out per time. So if you're on public, you have to be much more attentive to your bait. If you're on private, you can set up a little bit more of a long-lasting station. But the other side of that, and this is something that I've learned, is it's unless you have a very long shooting lane in a swamp, more than likely the bears know you are present while you're hunting them. Their nose is so good. They're very, at least older bears are careful about how they approach baits, and they get used to you being there, and they start recognizing you as the source of that food. And that's where it gets a little bit tricky, having other people bait for you. Their nose is, I think, 600 times more powerful than a dog's, so they can recognize the difference in human scent between you and I, for example. So if I have a guy in the UP going and baiting for me, he's going to get used to that guy's scent as this is food. And then 5 days before season, I show up and they're like, okay, something's different here. Something is wrong. So how you set up your bait, if you're going to utilize other people's help to bait a station, is important, so that, like the one that, for example, that Chase killed last year, Jason was baiting that bear for us for weeks while I was in British Columbia. And the day that we went to hunt that, we had Jason go to the bait, re-up the bait. They were used to hearing the sound of his four-wheeler every day. And we just hung back 60, 70 yards in this blind, stayed away from it completely, and they're used to Jason. They're not used to us. So if you're bow hunting and you're 20 yards from the bait, you need to commit to like, I'm going to be the only one that's on this bait. I'm the only one that's tending this bait. And you can go as much as to like hang your own clothing in that tree so that they get really used to your scent being associated with that food. If you're right
this year,
with that,
are you using a bow this year?
don't know yet. It's going to completely be determined by what we're seeing on camera. If we have that really big one from the last couple of years, I'll probably hang back and shoot him with a rifle. If we have a bunch of 250 pounders that are pretty religious, I might try to swing up in a saddle and shoot one with a bow. So it's all going to be determined by what we see. So, but that kind of goes into the importance of the cameras, right? So if you have cell cameras and you have service in the area, that saves you a lot of driving and saves you a lot of going in and checking cards and seeing what's there manually, which is great for us because we're almost 7 hours away from where we're going to be baiting. But it also allows you to have like a real-time insight to what's going on exactly. The tricky part with it is you have to be very careful where you put your camera in relation to the bait too, and to not, like, this is one thing that I found to be 100% true. Do not touch your blind. Do not touch the tree that you're going to be hunting, tree stand, saddle sticks, whatever, your camera. Do not touch that thing after you've touched bait. Set that fur gloves on, because they will rip that thing down, and they still do it. I mean, they're curious little terrorists. They shred everything there. We had last year we had a ground blind set up on kind of a long 2-track to the bait, and a sow with cuds climbed in the blind, chewed up our chairs, ripped a hole in the blind. Like, they're just so. But the more food scent you can keep off of the tools that you're using to hunt, the better.
Yeah. I'm debating. Yeah. It'll be interesting to see what happens. And this is why, as we've talked about, it's like we both have to be out there baiting because, I bait or you bait all year and the other guy doesn't. You can be like, who's this guy? Which is a wild thing, actually. It's wild that they know that.
And some care way more than others. We have 2 bears up there that we've been trying to kill for the last 4 or 5 years now that are probably north of 500 pounds.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll see him on camera again this year. One of them has a very distinct cut in his ass. You can't miss him. And he's been like that since we've had pictures of him 3 or 4 years ago. And then there's another one that's probably in that mid to high 400s at the time anyway. He's probably bigger now. And then tons of that 110 to 180, 220 pound bears. Those are the ones that you can typically get away with a little bit more on. Where, hey, I can't make it up to bait this weekend. You can. Those guys are still probably going to show up. But the bigger, older ones are going to be a little bit more like, something there right here.
When you're putting a bait out for the first time in an area, how are you doing anything to like jumpstart it? Get the scent really going.
So we'll have 2 baits this year that by definition are established. And that means that historically bears have came to that bait and they kind of remember about this time of year, this thing starts getting filled up. And then we'll have some that are new, and a new bait, in my experience, takes anywhere from 3 to 7 days to get a bear on it. That doesn't mean they don't know it's there faster, but that level of where they're comfortable enough to show up and come eat it happens usually in that 3 to 5 or 7 day window. So some things you can do to kind of jumpstart that: foods of high scent, right? Anise oil. Some guys do like a honey burn, which is basically like a pot full of honey, bacon grease, whatever's really smelly, and they put a jet boil or a sterno underneath that and just kind of let that smolder and smoke, and that scent carries out, and it's more of a call scent. Batum 907 makes something that we ordered this year called a scent ball, which is basically just it is what it sounds like. It's a scent ball that you hang up in a tree, and it's just a broadcast call scent. So the more scent that you get out there, the more bears are smelling it, the more chance you have of them being on the bait and getting established quickly.
Yeah.
And then usually it's around that like 10-day to 20-day mark where you have a pretty dang good idea about who's living in there, who's coming to that bait, who's in charge and who's not. There's always some big bitchy sow that kicks off a boar that you wanted to kill. Some places have sows with cubs, some don't. But you, in that 20-day window, you have a pretty good idea of this is my inventory. These are the bears that I'm working with. And here's kind of the hierarchy of how they work. If you ever notice where you have a lot of bears that are coming in from like that 7 to 9 o'clock mark that lasts 2 hours, and then all of a sudden they start showing up at noon, it's not because they're more hungry or more comfortable with the bait. It's because there's a new bear or a dominant bear that came to the bait now. And usually that happens again in that first like 7 to 10 days. You've had the same 250 pounder who's been coming in 3 days in a row between 7:15 and 8:10. And the next day he's there at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. More than likely you're going to have the big bastard show up that day.
Yeah.
And I found that those guys always are on like a 2 or 3 day rotation or whatever.
Yeah. Well, and it's so funny because it's, we talked about this a lot. Bears are like, they're just they're so unique than to compare it to like a deer. They have personalities. They have, different ways of being dominant in an area. They have different routines and actually usually like lack of routines. Yeah, it's just very fun.
Some of them have like such a plannable. We had 2 boars 2 years ago that you could almost stare at the reveal app at 6:40 and be like, within 3 minutes, these 2 are going to show up. And they did that for 2 weeks straight. They were on such a tight window. And then they got screwed up by that big one with the scar. And then they became noon bears. And he would come in at that time frame. So the more competition that you create on your bait, the better historically. Because if you don't have bigger bears in the area, if you don't have more dominant bears in the area, they by nature will feed right before dark or in the dark. You have to have someone aggressive pushing them into daylight.
Yeah. No, I can't wait. I need a bear. My wife's been giving me a hard time because I didn't get one last year. That is the favorite meat in my family. So that and the fat, everybody likes it.
Yeah, we've got some left. We ate some this morning, but we're getting down to it too. I do think that the fall bears are definitely the best eating, especially in that area because of how much last year the berry crop was absolutely phenomenal. So the fat and the meat they reflected that it was the best that we've ever had. So hoping for more of that this year because of the drought that we've had. Berries do really well in dry conditions. So I expect it to be very similar to that. I'm just kind of nervous about timing for when corn is going to dry out this year. It might be we have more corn sets than we do swamp sets.
Fine.
So
yeah. Looking forward to it. And for everybody listening, we're going to we'll be kind of chronicling our seasons this year and posting about it. So taking some self video stuff. So keep an eye out for that too, because we'll show you what we find and how it works out.
It should be fun. Bait and bears is a riot. And honestly, it's not my number one choice of how to hunt a bear, but the interacting with them and kind of watching what they do for that month leading up to actually hunting them creates a lot of that hype that's kind of not missing, but it's different than spot and rock or kind of going out and getting after it. It's just a different way of doing it, but it is a ton of fun. It's just a lot of work.
Yeah, a lot of screwing around, a lot of pre-work. But like you said, and we even did this last year when you had your cameras up for chase. But like, I mean, I was always looking at those cameras. Like, it's very fun to see what bears on it, what's going on.
Yeah, and we get all kinds of stuff too. We had moose on there last year. We had wolves on it. Lots of fisher and martin little things showing up. And another good thing to do is in the area where you have your barrel or your bait, having something that's greasy or sticky so that all those raccoons, possums, porcupines, I mean, deer show up on it randomly occasionally too. But all the other animals, bears included, are stepping in that grease and then tracking it to wherever they're going, or climbing trees with greasy feet, and just more broadcasting of scent.
Yeah.
So
That's awesome. Well,
it is a lot of fun.
Appreciate you coming on. Like I said, we were talking about it. I'm like, man, this is really good information. Hopefully if somebody finds it useful, I definitely have. And like I said, I've done it. I've just not, first of all, I wasn't even successful. And secondly, wasn't part of the baiting and didn't really understand all that goes into it. So I've done some reading, but it's just best to talk to somebody here and kind of describe it. So appreciate you doing that.
Yeah, it's a ton of fun. I'm looking forward to it. We'll be up there this weekend and getting it going. Hopefully by Monday, Tuesday, we have a few to look at.
That's right. All right. Well, everybody keep an eye out. We'll post trail camera pictures and videos for sure. And we'll document the hunt. And yeah, thanks for listening, and we'll see you soon.